Welcome to the third segment on knowing and navigating digital news. In this segment, we're going to take a close look at social media algorithms, specifically their relationship to the spread of disinformation. There is some basic background information about how algorithms work and other related topics in the accompanying PDF guide to this series. But here in this video, I'm very excited and delighted to be able to talk about this topic with an expert, Ahmed Al-Rawi, who is an assistant professor in the School of Communication at Simon Fraser University in Burnaby, British Columbia, Canada, just outside of the city of Vancouver. Professor Al-Rawi is also an expert on disinformation and in fact runs the school's Disinformation project. Welcome, Professor Al-Rawi, and thank you for your time in talking about this topic today.
Thank you for having me.
Let me start by asking you if you could say a little bit more about the Disinformation project you run, why you started it, and its goals.
We started back in 2019 to examine a few things, including the way journalists within the Canadian context report on topics related to fake news and disinformation. Mind you, this was before the pandemic started. So with the pandemic, as you know, a whole new era emerged. And that's how we began. We wanted to see what journalists reported on, what they said, and how they viewed the issue of disinformation. And of course, most importantly, how they should tackle it. Should they over-report it, under-report it, and how they view it, and so on. The other angle was looking at references to fake news as a hashtag or a phrase within the Canadian context on social media. And because we wanted to see what the public say about fake news, and we found that it's really a politically polarized issue. So people use these terms in order to attack opponents. We were surprised because we thought, oh, this is only happening in the United States, but we were surprised to see that it's actually also happening, though to a lesser extent within the Canadian context.
And one other question about the Disinformation project, given where we are now in our culture and the things that have changed, do you see sort of a new pressing issue that you'd like to see the Disinformation project kind of look into going forward?
Of course, we have huge challenges today. We can rarely cope with the new technologies and what is emerging. Like take, for example, deep fakes, take, for instance, the coordinated disinformation campaigns happening on different social media sites. We rarely can cope. What we have will be, I would say, only snippets of information from here and there. We don't really know the full picture. Most importantly, we don't know how these disinformation campaigns directly influence and shape opinions. That's something we have very, let's say, slight understanding about. So I think we are, as researchers, facing huge challenges today, and the same applies to social media companies.
Okay, thank you. So talking a little bit more specifically about algorithms, basically, how would you say algorithms right now on social media are serving to promote and highlight misinformation on our social media feeds?
You know, before I talk about algorithms, I have to talk about social media sites. If you think about their business model, their main goal is to keep you hooked on and connected to their own sites. And they will do anything to keep you there, including the fact that they design certain algorithms to feed you with sensational information or pieces of content that might be working well for other people. And this is where the algorithms come. In order to keep you hooked, connected, they will send you some types of information that could be viewed as working well. The problem here is that some of these types of information might be controversial, might contain disinformation or false information. And that's where the problems lie. Because again, it's because of the business model of these sites, we are facing this huge challenge today. Now, things are moving forward, and I think I'm seeing some positive changes, but I don't think enough is being done. More should be done, especially when it comes to moderating bad content. I think social media sites should do more with that by further relying on human elements and not only their own algorithms. It's ironic to talk about this, but actually these social media companies are using algorithms to counter the impact or the bad influence of algorithms themselves. So it's just like the war of algorithms.
Yeah, kind of ironic the way it's evolving that way. Now, of course, you mentioned the business model, which is a fundamental problem and cause for why the algorithms are working the way they are, to emphasize posts and content that grab our attention and stir strong emotion. In addition to that fundamental issue, has your research found that those who want to actually spread in a malevolent way mis and disinformation, do they actually study and learn how to optimize their content so it is more likely to be promoted by the algorithms? Is that another force that's out there?
Definitely. Those people are professionals. They know exactly how to game the system. So they use different types of optimization techniques, including, for instance, adding several hashtags to their own, what would they call, tags, or video content or textual content. This will definitely broaden the outreach of their posts and will be able to target more people who are involved in using similar hashtags. So just like, they have these different, mostly irrelevant hashtags as, as just accompanying their own original post. And this way they can guarantee that their messages will reach wider audiences. So that's part of gaming the system, which is unfortunately being done in different ways today. Another way of gaming the system is, for instance, instead of writing the word or the hashtag, which is probably controversial, they would use probably an image that is not readily readable by the algorithms. And in this way, they can further spread their controversial messages.
One thing I heard about that to me seems somehow even in a way more disturbing is I've been reading a little bit about emotion analytics, where there is apparently some technologies now where, and I'm not quite sure how advanced it is yet, but apparently there is some technology where there is the ability, based on signals that the users give off, where they're clicking, how they're clicking, their actions online, and being analyzed in terms of kind of a big data mechanism about what is this most likely correlated with, that some of these platforms and content producers can detect someone's precise emotional state at a moment, and therefore their potential vulnerabilities. So in other words, if they detect that someone is depressed or anxious, whether it's a commercial operation that may want to target a certain pharmaceutical or a political cause that feels this person's vulnerable. Have you seen much in terms of this emotional analytics happening yet, or is it still something that seems to be something to watch out for?
So when we're talking here about access to big data, no one has full access to the big data on these sites except for the companies themselves. So these companies have full control and a full view of what is going on. Facebook is probably the most advanced when it comes to understanding its own audiences. And what you just said is actually already being done by Facebook in order to figure out the emotional responses of its users towards different issues. They already know that, and there are actually published published research on this issue when it comes to manipulating the emotional responses of its users. So that's already been covered. However, There are also major corporations and brands that have some access to the data by which they will be able to figure out the emotional reactions of people towards their own brand and their own, of course, adversaries. This is helpful for them. They use some kind of machine learning techniques to understand the sentiments about certain things. This is helpful because they need to know where they stand in terms of their own brand and also in terms of their own competitors. So it's being done, and not only on Facebook, but on different sites as well.
It sounds like it's related a little bit to this term that's being used in the last couple of years, and also the title of a book, Surveillance Capitalism, as well.
That's true. So they make use of what people say, and as well as the metadata that the people share. And when I say metadata, means the likes, the emotional reactions like we have on Facebook, the emojis, as well as the retweets, if you're talking about Twitter, as well as the comments. So all of these types of metadata will help them understand what kind of content is working well and the sentiments around specific issues, brands, and so on.
And finally, based on your research and knowledge of this field and problem, what are some techniques, strategies, or habits of mind that you feel are most useful that online news users can actually integrate to avoid getting manipulated or fooled by this kind of online disinformation?
That's an excellent question. And of course, it's a huge problem that we have today, because we need to be familiar with each site we use. And this takes a lot of time as well as effort. We don't have all of this time and effort, actually. So most of the time we get, whether we like it or not, we get sometimes manipulated by these sites. My only feedback on this issue is we need to know more, read more, and understand how things are working on each site. I mean, I'm very curious about TikTok. Been like really on TikTok for a while, and I couldn't figure out actually how the algorithms work. And again, it's because of, you know, the old saying, algorithms are black boxes that are hidden from the public, which is true. So what happens in general here is that you get hooked to a site or to an app in a way that would be difficult for you to leave it. And that's because they know what you want. They try to understand you as an individual user by looking at what you view, how long you stay on each clips, what you like, what you comment on, and so on. And in the end, they will create a profile description of each user. And of course, when we talk about each user, for them, it's just we are just numbers. But these numbers could be translated into money afterwards. And that's why we are profitable for them. We are actually giving them money by using their own platforms and apps. So I think all of this should be kept in mind when we use different sites, because we need to remember that these sites are meant to serve us, not the opposite. Unfortunately, this is not happening today. We are serving these sites more than having the opposite thing. And most importantly, we need to put in mind that sometimes, because of our specific searches, we create filter bubbles that are utilized by these social media companies to cater specific type of information for us. And then we will end up in the same filter bubbles, going through rabbit holes that it will be difficult for us to leave. And that's something that we have to keep in mind. To give you one example, if I search on TikTok for cars, I will keep on getting a lot of video clips on cars. So unless then I change and I say, no, I want now flowers, or I don't know, animals. So that's why we need to burst that bubble from time to time. And again, try to understand these sites carefully, which unfortunately takes a lot of effort.
I guess my last question then is, given the dilemma we've sort of all find ourselves in with all these strong forces, some of which seem to be quite large and powerful and not easy to control. Have you seen anything that gives you a little bit of optimism or hope where there's some movement, whether it's by top down, whether it's by the platforms themselves, whether it's by media literacy, professors? Where do you see there's potential to kind of reverse some of these trends?
Yeah, I'm seeing, as I mentioned in the beginning, that when it comes to these algorithms, I'm seeing a lot of changes happening. People are now more aware, and these social media companies are being scrutinized much more than before. This is great. And I'm also seeing some kind of practical applications done, even with the search engines. So if you remember with Google, we had the autocomplete problem that was weaponized by different parties when it comes to, for instance, issues about women, religious groups, and so on. So now there is more scrutiny about the autocomplete. We are not yet there, but things are changing. We haven't reached the best solutions yet, but things are changing. One example I have seen from my own research is regarding the issue of hashtag use, and that's also definitely related to algorithms. So there are algorithms put in place by different social media companies that allow and block certain hashtags. And I'm seeing some kind of improvement, especially when it comes to maybe Instagram. In the past, you used to be able to use the hashtag fentanyl. Now it's blocked. This is good. In the past, you used to use the F word with religious groups on Instagram. Now it's blocked. However, if you search in other platforms like Twitter, you are still allowed to use it, which means on Twitter, there aren't algorithms that block these controversial racist hashtags. But I'm seeing some kind of improvement happening here, and I'm hoping with this kind of discussion, with your video and also with our writings, I think people will be more aware and probably will put more pressure on these companies.
Yes. Okay. Yes, I hope so as well. Well, we're out of time, Professor Al-Rawi. Thank you again for your expertise and sharing this important information on our video, and appreciate all of your knowledge here.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you.